Check the shareholder registry of Apple or Microsoft or any public US company. Your name is not on it. The name legally registered as the owner of your shares is a company you've almost certainly never heard of. It's called Cede and Company, and it sits as the legal holder for tens of trillions of dollars of American stocks on behalf of everyone else. This isn't a scandal, it's not a scam, it's how the system was deliberately built 50 years ago. But it does mean something strange about that buy button you pressed. Between the click and the actual ownership, there are 5 institutions, about a business day of settlement, and one legal fact that almost no retail investors has ever been told. Last episode, I showed you the 3 revenue streams that power every major bank. Today, what happens the second you use one of those banks or a broker to buy a stock? This is episode 2 of how money really moves. I spent over 20 years in banking, and what we're talking about today is something I saw from the inside. Today, I'll show you it from the outside. 3 things. First, the 5 institutions you trade touches. Second, why the shares in your account aren't legally registered in your name. And third, a timing rule that can cost you a dividend if you miss it by a single day, and another one that can get your account restricted for about 90 days if you ignore it. Before we trace down the order, here is the mental model. Buying a stock works like buying a house. You sign the contract with the seller. That's execution. A notary confirms both sides can deliver. The land registry updates the official owner. In housing, that takes weeks or a month. In stocks, 1 or 2 days. But every institution any stock purchase is doing one of those same jobs. Keep that in mind. Broker, market maker, clearinghouse, custodian. The same roles, just faster. Let me walk you through all of them. Step 1. The broker, the agent. When you click buy, your order arrives at the system of your broker. The broker checks your balance and your margin. If everything's clear, it routes the order. This routing decision is not trivial. It's one of the most profitable decisions your broker makes all day, and almost never does it go where you'd expect it to, a public exchange, which raises the obvious question: where does it go then? Step 2. The market maker, the seller with the inventory. By late 2024 and into 2025, roughly half of the US equity trading volume occurred off the lit exchange, with an even larger share of retail orders routed off exchange to wholesalers. Your broker sends your order to a wholesale market maker. The 3 largest, Citadel, Virtue, and Susquehanna, handle the overwhelming majority of US retail equity flow. Citadel alone is estimated to execute around a third of the US listed retail volume. They sell you the share from their own inventory. They earn the spread. The tiny gap between the buy price and the sell price, multiplied by billions of shares every day, that is a multi-billion-dollar business. You've been matched with the seller. The price is locked. Execution is done, but ownership not yet. So your order often never touches the New York Stock Exchange. For many retail brokers, routing to wholesalers off exchange has become the default path. Step 3. The trade report facility. Because a trade that just happened off exchange, it still has to be reported to the public tape in milliseconds. The trade reporting facility is essentially the mechanism that sends off your off-exchange trade to the consolidated tape, the paperwork steps. Milliseconds so far. The next step changes the clock entirely. Step 4. The clearinghouse, or the notary. At the end of the day, every broker and every market maker submits their trades to the central clearinghouse. In the US, that's the National Securities Clearing Corporation, a subsidiary of the DTCC. To give you a sense of scale, DTCC has recently handled on the order of $3.7 quadrillion of transactions in a single year. Many times the size of the entire US economy. The clearinghouse does 2 things. It guarantees the trade. If your broker collapses overnight, the clearinghouse makes sure the other side gets paid. And it nets. Instead of moving every single share, it calculates each broker's net position at the end of the day. The vast majority of theoretical movement, often well over 80–90%, disappearing into netting. One more step before ownership actually moves. Step 5. The custodian, the registry. The next business day, the depository trust company updates its electronic books. The shares moves from the seller's broker account to the buyer's broker account. Settlement is complete. 5 institutions. A few tens of milliseconds for execution, about 1 business day for settlement in the US under T+1, and roughly 2 business days in Europe and the UK under today's 2+1 standard. But the settlement being complete does not mean what you think it means, because the name on the books, the one we mentioned at the start, that isn't yours. Let me come back to Cede and Company. Cede Co is a nominee, a legal placeholder. It exists for one purpose only: to be the registered holder of American stocks on behalf of the depository trust company. The DTC holds the vast majority of publicly traded US shares in electronic form under the single nominee name Cede and Co. Your broker has an account at DTC. You have an account at your broker. What you actually own is called a beneficial interest. In this chain, Cede Co is a registered holder of the issuer's books. Your broker is the holder of DTC's books, and you appear only in your broker's books as the beneficial owner. Economically, everything is yours. Dividends, gains, losses, sale proceeds, all yours. Voting rights get passed through by your broker, but legally, you are not the registered owner. That is called the street name system. In the UK, for example, the equivalent mechanisms run through CREST and nominee accounts. In Germany and much of the European Union, central security and depositories like Clearstream and Euroclear handle pooled custody. And in the EU, there's one important additional layer: under MiFID II. Your broker is legally required to segregate client accounts from its own and to hold them on trust for the client. It's a strong structural protection that works differently from the framework US retail investors rely on, which combines segregation rules with SIPC insurance rather than the same trust-based model. Here's what street names actually means in practice. Shareholder voting runs up the chain via your broker. Most investors don't bother. If your broker collapses, your position is generally protected. But the process of moving your shares to a new broker depends on the change of custody holding together. And in extreme market events, trading halt, circuit breaks, broker unilateral restriction orders, what you have is a legal claim against your broker, not a direct claim on the company. Now, before anyone reaches for a conspiracy narrative, here is why this system exists. Before the 1970s, stocks were paper certificates. Moving them physically for every trade was so chaotic that Wall Street literally shut down for half a day every week just to process the paperwork. The street name system was the engineering fix. Pooled custody, one nominee, electronic book entries. Settlement went from weeks to days. The system works. It's just that how it works is almost never explained to people using it. Every episode, I show you the risk layer most people miss. Between execution and settlement, the 1-day window in the US and the 2 days in the UK and Europe, there's a real counterparty risk. The central clearinghouse guarantees the trade and steps in if a member firm falls, using margin or default funds and absorb the shock. You've probably already seen that happen and not realized it. January 2021. GameStop. Millions of retail traders opened their apps and found the buy button grayed out. The restriction wasn't conspiracy. It was the clearinghouse sharply increasing Robinhood's collateral requirement because of the volatility and unsettled exposure between the trade date and settlement date. Robinhood's practical choice was to post much more capital or to restrict new buyer orders in the most volatile names. It chose second option. The system worked exactly as designed. The settlement cycle has a real cost, and retail customers saw it for the first time with their own eyes. I broke down the full LTACM story, how a single hedge fund nearly forced a clearinghouse to collapse in 1998. Links up here. Watch that as next one. After this, 2 practical rules almost nobody teaches. One matters every dividend season, the other can get your account restricted for about 90 days if you ignore it. Now coming to the practical part. Check, understand, and apply. First glance, check. Pull out your most recent trade confirmation, any stock, any size. Look for 2 dates. One labeled trade date, the other settlement date. They are not the same. The gap between them is really what we just walked through. If you trade in the US, the gap is 1 business day. In the UK, Europe, it's still 2. Both the EU and UK are currently working towards a move to T+1 with a target date around October 2027. But the final rules and timeline is still being implemented. Until then, the asymmetry matters, especially if you hold positions on both sides of the Atlantic. Second lens, understand. Execution is not ownership. When your app says executed, you have an economic position. Price moves are yours from that second forward. Legal transfer of the shares happens later. For most investors, this distinction never becomes visible, but it explains why brokers can restrict trading in extreme markets and why instant trading is just a user interface illusion, not a legal reality. Third lens, apply. 2 practical rules. Rule number 1, dividend timing. When a company pays dividend, there's a record date, the date you must be on the company books to receive the payment. In practice, market uses the ex-dividend date, a business day before the record date to reflect the settlement lag. Under T+1 in the US, you generally need to buy no later than the trading day before the ex-dividend day to receive the dividend. Miss it by a single day and you miss the dividend, a direct consequence of the settlement cycle. Rule 2. Good faith violations in cash accounts. The second rule is for anyone who trades in cash accounts, not margin accounts. In the US, if you sell a stock today, the cash is not legally yours and settlement completes tomorrow. If you use that cash to buy another stock and then sell the new position before the original cash has settled, you've triggered what brokers call a good faith violation. Rack up 3 of those in 12-month period, and many brokers will restrict your account to using only fully settled cash for around 90 days. Most cash account investors have never heard of this rule until it hits them. Same underlying mechanism. Execution is not ownership. The cycle takes 1 or 2 days. Plan around it. 5 institutions: broker, market maker, trading reporting facility, clearinghouse, and custodian. A few tens of milliseconds of execution, 1 or 2 business days for a settlement, and a legal register that officially still holds your shares under someone else's name. None of this is hidden. All of this is deliberate, built over 50 years to handle volume that would otherwise collapse the whole market. But here's the question that follows. If your broker doesn't charge your commission, where is the money actually flowing? Why do 3 wholesale market makers earn billions from handling retail orders? And why in 2026 is the European Union moving to effectively ban the payment for order flow model that makes this route possible, forcing EU brokers to rethink how they monetize retail flow? Next episode, the parallel market most investors have never heard of: dark pools, wholesalers, and what free trading actually costs. Remember, the system isn't broken, it's just not designed with you in mind. I'm Philip, stay skeptical and see you in the next one.